Alright. Okay, good evening, everybody. Welcome to the town board meeting of Tuesday, July 9th. The town board has been in executive session discussing personnel contracts and advice of counsel. May I have a motion to open up the work session?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, so let's get started. We have our annual comprehensive financial report, which will be presented to us by our external auditor, Alan Cassay, from O'Connor Davies.
Thank you very
Go
much,
ahead, Alan.
Supervisor Tip. I'd like to start on Roman numeral page 17.
So Alan, are you on this one
No,
or
this
you're
one.
on the actual?
Yeah.
Right, okay.
That,
This one?
this one, the big one.
The actual,
The big one.
okay.
Which page again?
Roman numeral 17. X D I
It's a
I.
trip.
Okay. This is the certificate of achievement for excellence in financial reporting that the town received for their December 31st, 2022 report. It's the 26th consecutive year you've received this report, which is quite an achievement. Because if you don't turn there now, but the pages 89 through 115 are 6 different statistical schedules that have the information for each one, the demographics, the property taxes, the levies, the bonds, for the past 10 years. So that has to be updated every year by Rob and the financial department, and it's a requirement to receive this award. So there's a lot of work that goes into this.
So
And,
I think we need to recognize Rob and our whole team for this certificate of excellence. It's really a great accomplishment for our town, so
Yes.
thank you, Rob, and congratulations to all of us. Okay,
Now, if you flip back 2 pages, forward 2 pages, to the auditor's opinion. Okay. Actually, page 1, but we don't put a, for whatever reason, they've never put it in.
so I thought you said to go back.
You're going forward.
We're going forward, sorry.
Oh,
Hang on a second, CJ, is my microphone on?
Yeah, it was lit up green on the bottom.
It's not, it's going in and out.
This one is working.
do you wanna switch?
Just checking if you can,
Wanna switch with me?
if you can tell. Let's see.
I can hear you good, that helps.
Yeah, because
Oh, you can?
the
Okay.
speaker's on the top too, so
Okay, that's fine then, just making sure.
you can put that one back there.
Thank you. Okay. Sorry about that.
That's quite alright. Okay, so on page 1, which is not numbered, page 1 is the independent auditor's report. Basically, the first paragraph describes what we did. We audited the financial statements for the year ended December 31st, 2023. In the second paragraph is our opinion, and we deem the report to be, the financial statements to be presented fairly in all material respects. That's known as an unmodified opinion, also a clean opinion. It's the best opinion you could receive. Okay, if you turn to page 4, this is management's discussion and analysis. Basically, it's a narrative overview of the financial highlights that occurred during the year. It's similar to the transmittal letter, which is also a requirement for the ACFR, the Annual Comprehensive Financial Report, which is on page Roman numeral 3. Okay, we're not gonna go there. It was all these reports, the MD&A, the manager and the transmittal letter were written by Rob, and basically they mirror each other, but there's a lot more information in the transmittal letter. The MD&A has certain requirements as to what can and can't be in there. The transmittal letter, they give you more leeway. Okay. I recommend reading both of them. If you can turn to page 17. This is the statement of net position. This came about in about 2004 through the Government Accounting Standards Board, also known as GASB, statement number 34. They required all municipalities to take all their modified accrual fund level information and convert it and consolidate it into full accrual. Okay, so if you look at this in the asset section, you'll see you have capital assets not being depreciated, being depreciated. Those are all your land, buildings, equipment, and so forth. There's a schedule on page 43. And if you look below to the liability section, the last three lines, the non-current liabilities, you have due within 1 year and then due in more than 1 year. That amounts to 84.3 million. Included in that 84 million is $56 million of other post-employment benefits, which are the benefits that the town pays for retired employees. In addition, the calculation, which is done by an actuary, includes the liability for all employees that are currently working.
I'm sorry, you said liabilities was 84 million? It looked-
The total of the long-term liability, 3 million, the 4.2 million, and the 80 million, 31,000.
Okay.
Included in that is 56 million of OPEB, of post-employment benefits.
Is that like a 30-year liability?
No, when they first came out with it,
What's
there
the
was a certain,
period?
pardon me?
What is the period of time? Is it when your youngest employee
It's
will
from,
retire?
it's at this point, as of December 31st, it's for all employees when include, on the payroll. Okay, and it's from, they use the census, the census reports, when the employee started, how young they are, how long until retirement. So if you have an older workforce, this liability will probably be lower. If you have a younger workforce, it'll be higher.
Yeah,
Okay.
I just want people to understand, because people who aren't used to municipal financial statements or school district financial statements, this is not going to make any sense at all, and it's going to make it look like we're in trouble. But the fact is that the state has required us to put as liabilities all of these post-employment benefits into the future, as if and it makes it look as if it's owed now. So it's really misleading, and I think that people, it's important for people to understand that we're not the only municipalities where we have
This
this
is,
sort of liability in relation to
if you
assets.
quickly turn to page 52, you can see the calculation of what's incorporated into this $56 million liability.
Yeah.
The third line down, 2,279,000 is interest. Okay, and the reason for that is in New York State, there is no such thing as a trust to fund this liability. The only way you can fund this liability is to put the money into an irrevocable trust. New York State does not have one. Therefore, no municipality except for New York City can fund this liability. Okay?
Correct, I just
And
want
if you
people to know
look-
we're not the only ones that
I
have
know.
this, that appearing on our financial statements. Because
Exactly.
people have gotten alarmed in the past.
And to tell you the truth, the other thing that you should know about this, GASB 34 pages 17 and 18. I have never heard of any municipality who had a bond rating call with Moody's or Standard & Poor's where they ever discussed these first two pages, the full accrual statements. They just don't discuss them. They're more interested in your general fund, your other governmental funds, your taxing ability, and so forth. So it has no bearing on your bond rating, which I believe is AAA.
Yep.
No bearing on your bond rating, it has no bearing on your budget, it has no bearing on your taxes. It's primarily informational. That's what the Government Accounting Standards Board puts in there. It's probably a bunch of people sitting around. When I started, they started with GASB 23, and now up to 117, I think.
I remember when this started. yeah.
Right, it's
You were
everything.
advising me in a in a different capacity, but it was really thought to be completely unreasonable
Oh, yeah.
to present it this way.
Personally, it has no bearing on your financial statements. It really doesn't. So it's and if you look at page 52, the last number on the bottom, the benefit payments, the actual expense for the current year is $2,350,000. So that of that $56 million liability, your actual expense was only 2.3 million. And it's roughly about the same every year.
Correct.
So that's the statement of net position. On the next page,
Actually, you were about to explain what the line of interest meant, that
I'm
you said
sorry,
that we couldn't
Right.
fund it,
So
so
because you can't fund the liability, the theory is that if you were able to fund it and put money aside, that would earn interest. That would be able to offset the liability. But because you can't fund it, you're being penalized to the tune of $2.3 million.
thank you.
On page 18 is the revenue and expenses on the full accrual basis. Again, this has no bearing on your financials. There are certain reconciliations to take the modified accrual statements and to consolidate and convert it to the full accrual. And across the top, you have all your various program revenues that could be directly associated with the various functions or program on the left-hand side. And below that, you have your general revenues, which can't be associated directly with a particular function or expenditure. Okay? That's all I want to say about it. If there are any questions, I'll be happy to answer them. But the real story is on page 66 and 67. This is the general fund comparative schedule of revenues, expenditures, and changes in fund balance. The left-hand side is 2023, the right-hand side is 2022. Okay, so if you look at your total revenues, we're going across left to right. You have the original budget, the final budget, the actual, and then the variance with the final budget. The top portion of the page have your revenues, and if you look, the total revenues were 25.6 million. And if you look across to 2022, it was 31.6 million. So it's down about 6 million from the prior year. Reason being, the real property taxes are down about 3.7 million because due to certain adjustments. The sale for property and compensation for loss this year was $7,850, last year was 2.5 million. If you remember, last year you sold a property, the Dalvin property?
Yep.
And the selling price was $5 million, but the revenue that you record is offset by the outstanding taxes. So you recorded last year 2.5 million, and this year there was no such sale, so your revenue is $7,800. The state aid is $1.3 million, it's down from last year's 2.4 million. Most of that is in the mortgage tax. Mortgage tax was down about 1.1 million from the prior year. Now, what you've done and what you can, in the past, what you continue to do is when you prepare your budget for the revenues, you do it very conservatively, which is a good reason because the mortgage tax is a perfect example. When, properties were selling, there were no available, homes to buy and so forth, the mortgage tax was very high. Now the market is not what it used to be, so the mortgage tax dropped 1.1 million from the prior year. So if you budget on a conservative basis, you're not gonna get hit with any sort of major downfall. Okay? So on the revenues, you did have a positive budgetary variance of almost 2.3 million. That's the last column on page 66. On the expenditure side, the expenditures were up about 2.2 million, and there was a negative variance in the employee benefits of 1.2 million. There was an unusual amount of health claims this year. And basically, because they're part of NEPCO, that based on their history and so forth, you get there's an adjustment every year to the prepaid expenditures. Last year you had prepaid expenditures, if you flip back one page, and most of it, or all of it was for your health insurance. In the middle of the page, you'll see last year you had prepaid expenditures of 1.6 million, and this year it's 500,000. So the adjustment to your health costs through NEPCO caused the prepaid to disappear basically this year. And so the expenditures were up about 2.2 million, and overall you had a negative variance of 759,000, all due to the health insurance of the negative variance of 1.2. If you go to the other financing sources and uses, and you look at the transfers out, last year your transfers out were 229,000. This year they're 3 million, and it was all for capital projects. Now that's a good thing because you had available fund balance to transfer money from the general fund to fund the capital projects instead of going out and issuing new debt, which would have caused, whenever you issue new debt, you have the issuance costs, then you have the interest for the 15 to 20 years. This way, by using your excess fund balance, you're able to fund the capital projects. Okay. So the net change in fund balance was a negative 2.4 million, and if you add that to the fund balance at the beginning of the year of 21,960,000, you ended the year with a total fund balance of 19,549,000. Now, if you take all the variances, the drop in the property taxes of 3.7 million, the sale of property of 2.5, the increase in the employee benefits, all that adds up to about 10.9 million. And the difference between the net change in fund balance from last year, if you look under the actual column on page 67, the 8,554,000 versus this year's negative 2.4 million is about 11.3 million. So those few items basically accounted for the change in the general fund. Everything else was relatively comparable to the prior year. Now, if you turn to page 56, we can take a look at your fund balance. It'll be really small, on the left-hand side, you have 2023 and then 2022. The first column is the general fund. And as I mentioned before, if you look at the non-spendable, last year was 1.6 million, this year it's 496 million, primarily because of the prepaid expenditures. You have a restriction for debt service of 109,000, which means that 109,000 can only be used to pay off the existing interest on your bonds. You've committed certain monies, 863,000 for property acquisitions. Now what the commitment means is that the board authorized that commitment and they could undo the commitment by taking a vote. Okay, so it's not it's different than a restriction where the money could only be used for that particular purpose. So basically you've decided to commit this 863,000 for future acquisitions. If things change, you can uncommit it and it'll flow to the unassigned. Okay?
And that particular amount of money that was set aside for the property purchase at John Corwin Way,
Right, okay.
which we're hoping to complete this year.
Then you have your assigned fund balance of 308,000, which are purchase orders that were basically goods and services that you purchased prior to the end of the year, but you didn't receive them before December 31st, so that money is encumbered. And then you have the next line down, the subsequent year's expenditures, you'll see the 1,330,000. Basically, you're taking $1,300,000 out of your fund balance and appropriating it and using it to balance the 2024 budget. Last year, that number was 850,000, so you've increased it by about $480,000.
And that was necessary to stay under the property tax cap, if you remember from the budget last year with the different things that we had to include with the new sewer district coming online, with the health insurance increases, salary increases, et cetera. We needed to use some fund balance to help offset that.
Right.
We had it to use.
And then you have your unassigned fund balance of 16,440,000. And that's about 65% of your appropriations for 2024, and your total fund balance is 19,549,000. Any questions?
What do you think of that number, 65%? Do you think that's I mean, it sounds pretty healthy to me, I just want your
It
opinion.
sounds healthy. The town is certainly in a good financial position. I personally don't think it's excessive because what is it, $16 million? I mean, everybody's aware of the cost of sewer projects and so forth. And you do have the ability to fund some of your capital projects without borrowing, so thereby saving money.
Correct, right.
Okay, and you're appropriating $1.3 million to keep the taxes in line. And overall, the taxes went down in the general fund this year significantly. So I think it's a healthy fund balance, and it certainly supports your AAA rating.
Okay, so do you think we're at a good level? This is
That's up to the board. I just don't,
Okay.
I just don't think it's excessive,
okay,
okay?
very good.
I mean, I don't believe you have a fund balance policy.
We don't, no.
I know the Moody's and S&P, they do like fund balance policies, which would basically dictate how much you can keep in your unassigned and how much you can use elsewhere. That's something possibly to think about, but it's certainly not an excessive amount,
Okay.
okay?
Good.
Only other thing, are there any questions? Do you have an answer them? I know you have a large crowd. All the other funds, your highway fund and your special district fund, on page 74, on page 66, 74, that's page 74, that's your highway fund. That had a slight surplus for the year of $189,000, and it again has a fund balance of $1.6 million. Certainly not excessive for a $6 million budget. Okay. And on pages 82 and 83, are the special districts. The special districts actually start on page 80. 82 and 83 is the totals for all of them. And of course, you have your water districts, garbage districts, your refuse, lighting, parking, and so forth. Your overall, for the year, had a shortfall combined for all districts of $505,000, but you have a total fund balance of almost $9,200,000. So there's only one special district that had a deficit at the end of the year, and that's on page 81, the commercial refuse district. Which is not,
Which one?
pardon me?
Which one?
What was
One?
The commercial refuse district on page 81, the
One and
second,
two?
pardon me?
There's two.
1 and 2.
One and two.
Both of them?
Oh, number one, I'm sorry.
Well, two also.
Yeah, and two,
Okay.
yes, both of them.
Okay,
Yeah, so what has to happen there unfortunately is the cost of the refuse removal exceeded what we were charging the property owners and merchants in that district. So unfortunately, to counteract that, they'll have to see a rate increase because there are no other revenue drivers in those two special districts. Those districts exist just for refuse removal, and the only revenue coming in is billing the merchants.
how does that happen? Is that bulk pickup? Where does that come in?
Yeah, I think that's a combined it might be the contract that we combine with the school district. There's one that we kind of a joint contract with, and I think they pick up 6 times a week. That's the collection points from Allen Place back behind Starbucks there, and also in the South Greeley parking lot there. You'll see 2 like dumpster corrals back there.
Okay,
When do we anticipate that increase?
I have to take a look at it and see what we have to do, but it needs to be sooner rather than later because we are running a deficit in those districts. I mean, it's not a huge deficit, but we do need to make that
Oh, we need
whole
to
and
make an adjustment.
yeah, and also what happened during COVID is we had a lot of vacancies in there. So for whatever reason, the two districts were set up at different times with different revenue models. One of them is where we bill the property owner where regardless of who's in there, the property owner pays, and the other one is where we bill the merchants. Well, where we were down quite a few merchants during the COVID, we had no revenue coming in, but you can't tell the garbage company not to come, they have to pick up the dumpster for everybody else that is here, so that's kind of why we got a little bit behind there coming out of that, so we're gonna have to make an adjustment to those rates.
I just wanna make sure we're giving those that are gonna be affected by that time, I wanna make sure
Sure,
we let them
absolutely we
know.
will, and
to
it's not, you
expect.
know, there's a
Yeah,
slight
good
deficit,
point.
I think we had a deficit last year. We're not gonna hit them excessively, we'll gradually.
Thank you.
Are there any questions on the financial statements? Other than I can go into what's known as the management letter, that other booklet you have.
Yeah, no, I asked my questions and we went along. Does anyone else have any questions? No?
Thank you, Alan.
Okay.
So in this booklet, the small ones you have.
Yep.
Known as the management letter. And if you turn to page 12, there are potentially 3 levels of comments: material weaknesses, significant deficiencies, or control deficiencies. There are 2 control deficiencies in the town, and I think the first one is repetitive from the prior year. It has to do with the deficit in the 2 special districts funds, which we discussed, and that some of the other special districts funds had excessive fund balance or deemed to be excessive. Just something, all this is informational for the board to consider. There's, as I said, these were not significant deficiencies or material weaknesses. Okay, control deficiency just means that we are basically required to inform the board that they exist.
And now let me just address for some of the smaller special districts where we say there's an excessive fund balance, when you're talking about a budget, for example, in the parking district of like $135,000, to have $200,000 or $300,000 would now be deemed somewhat excessive, but that would barely put a dent in any capital project that would have to be done for that. In particular, we started taxing the S9 sewer district that's up at Chappaqua Crossing. We need to build a fund balance because when there is a capital project that needs to occur, it's not going to be 20 or 50,000, it's going to be hundreds of thousands of dollars. So I'll go back to several years ago, the lighting district, where we had a nice fund balance in the lighting district. We were able to replace all the LED lights throughout the town with that. We have another we have a surplus in the lighting district now, and we're going to be, we got a significant rebate from Con Ed because we installed the LED lights. So with that fund balance, we're looking to fund a new bucket truck to be able to access the lighting. So that's some of the reasons why these special districts, there's sewer districts that have funds in it that when some of that equipment breaks, we need to have the money, we won't have to borrow money. So that's why the money sits there and exists there.
Can you remind me, did we borrow money or did we come from fund balance when we had to replace the culvert and the, for lack of a better term, the overpass in the train station parking lot?
We borrowed money. You know what? No, we didn't. We funded that over a period of years, I think, and we have a $125,000 transfer to capital each year to fund improvements in the train station parking lot. So we paved that over a period of I think 3 or 4 years, and we replaced the culvert there, we replaced some guide rails, we replaced the fence back along Washington, and that was a multi-year project, and we've been funding it through operating funds. So it's not one for one, but give or take, the money that we receive from parking permits is general fund revenue. Out of that, we'll transfer some of that each year into the capital project to fund those improvements.
Okay, thank you, Rob.
That's basically
Good
it.
planning.
Are there any questions that we haven't answered? Overall, the audit went very well. And the town's in good shape.
Okay, thanks very much, Alan, for another good report. Thank you for your thoroughness and we appreciate it.
I did have a question. You mentioned the control deficiencies on page 12, but what about on page 13?
A lot of them are, they exist, they're minor, I didn't wanna, you can go over them, there was some outstanding checks greater than a year. That's everywhere, some road permits, the account balance is 5 years old. A lot of these are from the prior year, which we discussed. It's just a matter of looking into them, and with the deposits, you try and contact whoever the money belongs to. And after a certain, you make a good faith effort, otherwise you just take the money and it just becomes your revenue. Okay? The capital projects is a repetitive comment from the prior year. Tracking them, so basically a set schedule, a project line schedule of all your capital projects, the funding source, the expenditures and the fund balance. And the Justice Court, there's a reconciling item in that.
And just to remind the board, the capital projects length schedule, that has to do with some very old projects that we have been,
Before you even came here.
before I even came into existence.
And it's not a required, schedule.
We changed accounting systems a couple times and the records for some of those capital projects are difficult to find and so we're not able to go all the way
Talking about
back,
the
that was in the
fund
early
balance,
2000s. But since I've been here and we do maintain a schedule, not exactly the one that they recommend, but we do maintain a schedule of everything and we do tie out to the dollar to everything that we borrowed, all the money that we borrowed through bonds. So we have that, it's just that going way back, that's an exercise and there's never enough hours in the day to sit there and dig through boxes, which are hopefully we still have somewhere, but those are they're projects that are long closed out and long completed, but as far as the schedule, we're not able to tie it out onto a schedule.
Okay. All right, Alan, thank you very much. Nice to see you again.
You too.
Thank you.
We'll see you next year. Okay, take care, bye-bye. All right, and now we have an exciting presentation. We are happy to welcome our Arts and Culture Committee. If you'd like to introduce yourself and introduce all the members who are here, thank you all for coming. I mean, it's really great to have
up for the occasion.
so many of you here.
Well, I pretty much know all of you on the board except for Ally, but for Ally, I'm Joan Schilkraut. I'm co-chair of the newly resurrected Arts and Culture Committee. We're a very spirited group, if you can't tell. Mark is my co-chair. And then we have Lisa, Roberta, Rachel, Rachel, Carolyn, and Jen.
Okay, welcome.
And there are other members. So this is my first time doing this, so I'm not exactly sure how much I'm supposed to be going into, so if I go into too much detail.
We're an easy group.
That's what Jen keeps saying.
Yeah, so notwithstanding the microphone and the table, we're pretty informal.
Okay, great, perfect. And it makes me feel better that I know most of you too, so that's good. But first of all, I did wanna say thank you for resurrecting our committee, because we're enjoying meeting each other. And as we're scouting out ideas and talking about things we wanna do in town, we're meeting with other groups and learning how we can collaborate. And I know myself, I mean, I'm flabbergasted at all that I'm learning about town and telling friends, do you know that there's jazz at the library at 4, on Fridays? Do you know this? Do you know that? So
I am so excited to have this committee, and I wanna thank Jen for all her efforts in getting people together.
She's our fearless leader.
Well. It's quite a group. So we are all art lovers of the arts, and we're very excited to have this committee being resurrected. And I love the way that you're reaching out to other committees and branching out and
Yeah,
doing
we're
all that
trying.
collaborative work.
I mean, there's a lot of ideas in this town. Let me tell you, there's not a loss of ideas on things to do. So one of the things that we were floating around, bringing it back to our proposal, we've as it says, we've affectionately called it the Petticoat Lane mural. there's a lot of communities, small towns like us that have artwork and it adds to the charm and the just the beauty of the town. So we floated the idea around and then we kind of walked around town, the different areas, and we thought about different places where a mural might be appropriate. But as you know, we also need the property owners. It's just not saying, hey, let's just throw up a mural. So when we kind of scoped out and we saw the one at Petticoat Lane, in the picture you can see it's actually perfectly framed out. It's waiting for us. It's screaming, paint me. And I'm working now with Phyllis and she's been approached multiple times and she's fully supportive of painting her wall. She's like, well, what's taking you so long?
Okay.
She's she's into the art. She's actually an artist herself back in the day, if you don't know that. She has a piece of artwork in her store. So part of our proposal is obviously we need to ask you for funding for supplies to paint the mural. And also we feel that we should pay a compensation to the artists if they would like to be paid. I'd like to thank Roberta and Lisa for going out and giving us some comps. And we did scope and see what kind of artists, what they charged in other towns and other communities in Westchester, just to get an idea before we said, throwing out a number at you. So I thank them for that. Right now, we thought we leave it kind of open-ended for the artists to submit. We didn't want to give them too much credentials, but we did want to give them some specs. And we came with the specs of something very colorful and vibrant with the theme of community. I mean, we want people, the kids, to go there and take their selfies, in front of it. We want it to be bright and cheerful, something you look at and smile, and nothing that's gonna have this political statement that's like, why did you say this or why did you that? It's just fun, something fun that brings us all together and makes us want to smile. So that's as far as we've got. We've now, got the permission from Phyllis. We think we ideally, in our ideal world, we would like a local artist, just so it keeps our community tight. But we're open to reaching out to other artists. But if we find someone local that we agree upon a mural, yay, win-win.
I'm just curious, how are you going to advertise? Have you sort of brainstormed different ways of going out to the artists or
Yeah.
to attract artists?
Absolutely. A lot of us have, because we're in the arts and culture community, we just word of mouth. We were like, oh, this person does it, this person, and we're learning about so many more artists in town. But definitely, Rachel has created a Google form that we plan to include in the newsletter, the town newsletter for submissions, as well as posts on our Facebook page. And again, word of mouth.
Right, and I saw in your proposal that you're going to ask the artists to present their proposal and do a little, like a draft of something to give you an idea.
Oh, for sure.
Of,
Yeah, we wanted definitely a sketch of what they're going to put up there, so that we can approve it, you can approve it. Phyllis, wants to approve it. It's going on her building.
Yes.
I think she will be the easiest one to approve.
Yeah, I've thought of, and I think it's fabulous, and I don't want to complicate anything, but when this had been discussed in the past, people talked about movable art. Have you thought of having a sort of canvas there that can
Funny you
be
should say that.
exchanged and at some point in a few years or so, another one could be?
Yeah, well, so we're learning about murals that we thought they were just painted on the side of the buildings, and through our process here, we've learned that they're actually painted on they're painted on panels that get affixed, adhered to the building. So technically, yes, it could be. It's nothing that, we like to think it's permanent, but if there's a place for it to be taken down and reused or something, then potentially, yes.
Right, so it could be changed without having to paint over or
Correct.
destroy it. We wouldn't wanna destroy a work
No,
that's
yes.
done,
So potentially, yes, the answer would be
But just
yes.
in terms of flexibility and, at some point, people want change for whatever reason.
Right, yeah, there you go.
Just looking to the future, but I think it's a fabulous idea,
I do too.
yeah.
No, I think that's a great idea too, and to go into it with the artists with the idea that it would be maybe moved and put somewhere else to make sure everyone has a common understanding of what the future might be for it too.
Right.
Yeah, I think it's actually a little bit easier for the artists to paint it on these panels because it's in the comfort of their own air conditioned.
Yeah.
You know, they're not out there, people staring at them and stuff. I mean, hopefully people will be watching when it is, you know, installed.
Yeah.
But the whole process of actually painting, I know myself, I don't want someone hovering over me when I'm doing something, but it's nice to be admired.
Yes.
I really like the process that you guys have outlined to get submissions and, you know, that it's a little bit open and not, I think what you said, not heavy-handed prompts. I like the way you guys have done that.
Jody, have you heard of Street Art for Mankind? It was a couple of years ago.
Of course I have.
A couple of years ago, I said it was a couple of years ago, we brought them in on a couple of occasions to do these mural projects. And there was and it's streetartmankind.org. I just went back in my email to find it. And
There's something going on with the,
Maybe someone doesn't have their.
Carrie, did you just mute yourself? Was that it?
can you hear me?
Yeah, it was back there.
It was back there. Oh, thank you,
Okay.
Holly. Okay.
So they came in and what they were charging was $25,000 and they would paint an entire wall. And obviously the funds would have to come to a grant, but their theme would, they'd pick a theme, so sort of what your concept is.
Yeah.
Pick a theme and then carry that theme through buildings, generally public buildings, because it's hard to force someone to keep that painting on their wall at a private, business if they sell their building to
Right,
someone
well,
else.
yeah.
I would just encourage you to look at that because I think it's a great idea that there's some consistency through the theme that maybe it sort of carries you through the town as opposed to just saying this is a random something community, special to community here, random here. If it can travel so that some people can say, oh, I wanna go to this one, I wanna go to the next one, I wanna go to the next one and follow it through.
I like the next one and the next one and the next one because we do have ideas of next ones and next
Right,
ones and
right.
next
So,
ones.
Certainly it's a lot cheaper than $25,000, even if that money would come through a grant or something. But I really think it's a good place to look because so you don't recreate the wheel, they've done this and they put on a whole presentation, we can forward you the presentation that they gave to
Oh,
us
yeah.
before. Not that you have to mimic it, you have your own ideas, but it's certainly a good place to start and I think it'll be helpful to look at.
I mean, do we wanna mention our future ideas? I mean,
Yeah, I
okay.
think so.
I mean, so and I think Jen has mentioned it too, like underneath the bridge. Again, there's canvases that are there, the arches, there's 8 of them. We're thinking the Bridge of Hope of somehow doing something along those lines and obviously 8 different murals that would follow a consistent theme. And I've reached out to the art department at the high school of, somehow can we get the students involved to display those AP art students? We can get them involved and
They do amazing work.
yeah, I mean, the potentials are endless.
Yeah.
And then there's the bus shelters out at the West End that could be painted again and look pretty, be things of arts. So we're not out of the loss, we would definitely love to, I mean,
Theoretically, you could
I'm
paint the
painting
side
all
of
the windows
hall.
in town, so yeah.
You can paint the side of, I'm not suggesting you do that, but one of the things we discussed years ago was
Yeah, I
painting the
mean-
entire side of town hall.
No, and I agree with you, if there's a consistent theme, it looks nice, you don't want it to look like, what are these things, and it's nice to see the artwork in town. I walk past the one in between, I don't know if there is a mural in town in between,
The
Memorial
parking lot,
and,
right.
and that highlights the Chappaqua Children's Book Festival primarily, which is nice, you look at it and you're like, oh yeah, like that's a prominent event in this town, we should show it off.
I just wanna say that one of the themes that we've been talking about in general, as a committee is highlighting local talent. That just feels like something important to us, in a multitude of ways, not just fine art, not just public art, but also the ways we maybe use the exhibit space at Chapac, just to highlight homegrown talent. So we like the idea of connecting with the AP art teacher and bringing students and even like really graduates who have, some of whom have shown interest, like strong interest in putting something up as a mural. So yeah, I mean thematically it would be wonderful if it was all cohesive, but also I think highlighting people who we know and who have benefited from living here, and like showcasing people who maybe aren't known. So that's something that we've been thinking about too.
Yeah, it certainly augments the theme of community. To have the source of the artwork be part of the community as well.
Yeah, no,
I think that's a
really
very
like that.
powerful thing and meaningful.
I mean, even our committee, our very own committee, you're looking at people who work in the arts or are interested in the arts. Joni paints our town. Single-handedly. So,
I'm not doing a submission though, just so you know.
We have people on the committee who are involved in photography, theater arts, jewelry making. We have a knitting specialist on the committee. And so, we seated a committee that represents local talent, and we're all motivated to draw upon local talent as well.
That's exactly what I was gonna say, Jen. Took the words out of my mouth.
Well, I think it's very, very exciting. I think it's fabulous and I can't wait to see what progresses. What do you think the timeline might be?
So
Of course, I mean, I don't think you should rush, you should do it right, take your time, I'm just
Well, no,
curious.
so ideally, if you love our idea and, we get the funding, we would love to see it unveiled at Community Day this year. We think that's kind of realistic because we have primarily reached out to artists, obviously, to get their pricing and interest and whatnot. So we think that would be wonderful if it all came together and we could unveil it at Community Day, like rah for everybody.
Is that logistically feasible?
Yeah, it is, especially more so because you don't have the weather element. If a person is painting the panels inside their home, it doesn't matter what the weather is outside. So we're hoping that if we open up the submissions and get them, and by the end of this month of July, we meet beginning of August, and then that would give them 6 weeks to paint it and get it up. I mean, there's no prep on the wall. I mean, like the building's there, it's ready to go. There's only a pipe that sticks out on the wall, and Phyllis says, that pipe can't be removed, and that would be incorporated in whatever picture, the mural that would go up.
Okay.
I think Community Day is a great time to unveil.
Yeah. Is that September 14th? Is that?
I mean, it seems,
Okay, cause I
it
tried to
seems
look on the
quick.
calendar and it's not on, or I didn't see it.
Yeah,
It's
Okay.
the 14th.
It's the 14th, that Saturday, right?
it does seem like an ambitious, it's a quick turnaround. But
If you think it could
Uh,
happen, we're excited to see it.
yeah, well,
I mean,
we're all
as long
for
as
it.
you give us the go ahead, we're ready to go.
okay. Rob, what is the budget? I mean,
Yeah, so
I'd
I
love to be
did
able
wanna
to do
actually
this.
comment on that. So, throughout the year, the board has different boards and commissions, they have funds and budget lines for that, and they have discretionary funds with different special projects. So, that would be at the board's discretion. I would ask you to maybe more formally come up with a number if it was the 1,500 or the 2,300 and not to exceed, so that we could pay, they would have the authorization to pay the artists, buy the supplies, as long as it doesn't exceed such number, then that would be okay.
right,
and
our next meeting is on August
August
13th,
13th,
so
yeah.
that's kind of
That was really ambitious.
stretching things a bit, it would be a long
Does
time.
it require a vote?
Can you give us
Yeah.
a number? Can you give us I mean, you said,
I think we were thinking like 1,500 is
But I think if we're gonna give a number not to exceed, I think maybe
2,500.
3,000.
right, because you
Really,
have.
this is like, let's make a deal.
Let's not get carried away.
Let's make a deal.
You have supplies as well, right?
They need to purchase.
They need to
it.
purchase.
Yeah, no, we even need to purchase the
Yes.
supplies.
Right, so would that number include supplies? If you're saying.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay,
But
so
you've
what is the number?
discussed with an
2,000?
artist, right?
Are we going
I think
2,000,
three.
2,500?
2,500.
not to exceed 2,500.
Not to exceed 2,500.
All right, can we do, if everyone is amenable to this, could we draft a quick resolution
Yeah, Christine.
for tonight, Christina?
Sure.
Are you
Thank
able
you,
to do
Christina.
that for us?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think
Okay.
that's good to give them
I'm
time.
gonna love town
Yeah,
board meetings.
so-
I'm gonna come here
Yeah, we
often.
get things done.
Good night. I know, you guys are great.
We're gonna get things done.
So one other thing I wanted to point out, and this is actually a good time of year to point this out, we're about to start our budget season, which will begin
So fun.
probably late August. So, you know, this project for this year, that's fine, that's not a large amount of money. If you have ongoing stuff that you wanna do, this is a great time, early August, late August, early September, to present that to the
Yeah.
board, to Jen can bring to the board as part of the budget process if you want funds included for next year.
Yep, we do.
So if you have some ideas,
You'll be hearing from Mark
and
next
you
time.
can put some numbers to them and you know, the board may or may not fund all the ideas, but going forward, this is the time of year to ask and we've heard from different committees, you know, the refrain has been, we don't have any money. Well, it's the chicken or the egg, it's a municipal budget, so the money doesn't exist and you find it, you ask for it and then it's appropriated, that's how it works, so so this is a great time of year and we just ask any of the boards and commissions that are planning some projects and some of the boards are beginning to get really active now, this one.
The mic,
And,
go for it, Mark.
We'd love to show up with a budget proposal for the next meeting if we can. One thing that would be very helpful if any past proposals that we could refer to,
So
possibly.
don't, I don't have any.
Well, no.
I
We're
keep
good.
asking for them and so that's why we've had a standard amount of money set in the budget for probably the last 10 years because we haven't had any specific proposals.
Right.
So it can be you know, basic, a couple line description of what you wanna do and an estimate of the cost. And that should be maybe yeah, probably for the first meeting in September, maybe that you just wanna come again if
Yep.
the board would
Good
like to
timing.
hear some of these proposals and that's enough time for me to include that in the tentative budget going
Okay.
forward.
Okay.
So the first meeting in September, if we come with a slightly itemized
Yep.
budget,
Yep.
we can present it
Yeah,
then.
and you know,
Okay.
you don't have to be quite as detailed as we are where we literally count pencils and toner cartridges, et cetera, that we're gonna buy for the year, but it, you know, if you give us a good ballpark going forward. And the board, again, you can come with multiple projects, they may decide to fund 2 this year, 2 next year.
Right, and
However
just
they
to
choose.
put things into context, it's a pot of money that's shared among all the committees. So just to say if we don't fund everything, it's because other committees
Sure.
obviously have you know, their agendas and the
Sure.
things going on too.
It definitely helps
But
planning though to
it
know
will
what
work,
somebody
you know,
wants to
it
do.
will work out.
Sorry, and your preference would be to specify individual projects as opposed to disciplines, cause we've sort of subdivided by performing arts and visual arts and those sorts of things.
I think project.
It would be nice to have a balance of all of
Yeah, I mean,
those, yes.
project
It sounds
based
like a
would,
project,
yeah,
Yeah.
would better give us an idea of how to kind of
Okay,
segment off funds within the
we can do
budget.
that,
And
and
you
then
know, some of our projects might actually bring money and
Okay.
pay for themselves, perhaps
That's what we're
not the
hoping for.
first year, but you know, things that we might wanna put up at Chapac, we would charge a, you know,
Sure.
ticket
Like an
fee
exhibit
and
or
Like a
well,
performance.
like
Like a
a
performance.
concert
or performance, okay.
So is there a way to sort of highlight that in a budget proposal that it could actually bring in money or pay for itself?
Yeah, I mean, you might show what the prospective revenue for something might be.
Yeah, that would be part of your proposal.
yeah, we will, so I think it
Okay.
would basically to say spend X amount and operate at an assumed loss of X amount from that.
Yeah, something like that. I mean, you know, not everything that the town, not every program we run is a revenue generator. I mean, there's some,
Understood.
certain departments don't bring in any money whatsoever. They perform valuable function, but they're not revenue producing. So it's not to say that every program has to pay for itself.
Just one more question, cause we referred to grants for previous town art projects, like is there a town process that we can access for the grant writing, or is that something the committee would take?
If you're able to identify grants, that's helpful to us. So a lot of times we're on distribution lists for grants. That often has to do with sewer projects, specific projects. The grants they're not often, here's $100,000, do with it what you will. It's here's $100,000, but it must fit into this category. So I'm not aware of any specific one for arts. I'm certain there would be. We frequently get SAM grants from Dormitory Authority, and those are park and recreation based. We've renovated some fields, we put some lighting on some fields. so those are some of the projects that we've used. So it'd be very helpful if anybody out there has that. I mean, we do have not a specific grant writer on staff, but we have multiple people on staff that are experienced working with grants and writing. So, you know, if you identify an opportunity, certainly somebody on the staff can assist with the application.
Keep that in mind,
Yeah.
and we will, we'll get a proposal together for September.
Rob, I have a question about the funds that we have allocated for the boards and commissions. How much have we spent so far this year?
Well, I don't have that off the top of my head, but probably a minimal amount, I would think.
Okay. So we definitely have room.
There's not, I don't recall a lot of proposals that have been brought to the board yet this year,
Me
so.
neither.
So maybe we should say not to exceed 3,000.
Well, I mean, that doesn't mean you have to spend a whole lot, you could use the money for something else.
Alright.
But I mean, do you think that you're cutting it close?
You know, we haven't gone through the process, so we wouldn't want to exclude, you know, a muralist without knowing what the budget is before we get into it. I think, you know, we certainly will not exceed the number you provide.
I mean, understanding what they put out for like comparables and stuff, I feel like 3,000 is probably a more realistic number. In case something goes awry.
And an abbreviated timeline. So
Okay.
understanding we don't know what we don't know. A little flexibility couldn't hurt. We are definitely trying to move fast to get it for community day.
Okay, so, alright,
It's a really
so
prominent
seeing that
spot
we
in town.
have some monies there,
Yeah,
well,
you-
we can
you
say not
definitely
to
have
exceed
3,000.
3,000, where's Christina? She's probably
Oh, she's
writing.
gone.
She's
Oh.
gone.
She
Probably
probably
writing
is.
She's probably writing it
Yeah.
now, she'll have to go back. Okay,
Oh,
so we'll do the 3,000,
Thanks, Rob. Thank you.
and so you won't have to come back and you can have a good buffer, but you don't have to spend it.
Yes, we
Okay.
have.
Right, yes.
I also recommend reaching out to the Rotary Club about Community Day so it can be incorporated as part of the marketing.
That's great, yeah,
Yeah.
we'd love to promote it any way we can.
When
good
do they
once we get
start
on yours.
their marketing for it?
Last month.
Oh, okay.
But
But it's on, it's ongoing.
Yeah,
Once we
I'm
have,
You've got time.
yeah, and
Yeah.
we'll have
It's-
more to talk about.
It ramps up as
Once
it goes.
once we have, you know, a solicit RFP or, you know, we can put something out looking for muralists and we can get anybody who wants to be involved in distributing that involved. But yeah, we'd love to work with it.
Alright, excellent.
Alright,
We're excited.
They win the Spirit Award.
I
Yeah.
Thank you, everyone.
Alright, thank you all for coming, and it's nice to have you here, but you don't have to stay. But although we enjoy having you here, you can
No, I
stay.
like their spirit. We should
Yeah.
stay.
That's
Okay.
that's
Yeah.
okay,
Don't
we'll
worry.
be back,
You
we'll
should
be
come
back.
back.
just the beginning.
You're gonna cheer for the consent agenda the same way, right?
Thank you, and thank you
Thank
for
you
listening.
very much, thank you.
Thank you.
I have a greater
Bye.
appreciation now, for sure.
Okay, that was great. Okay, so now we are going to talk about what has been going on at Gedney Park Pond. We're all very concerned about the situation at Gedney Park Pond, and it's definitely not what we want for the town, and we are on track to remediate the situation. And so I'd like to ask, let's see, Rob, how do you want to get started? Should we have Dennis start, or do you want to introduce what we'll be doing? And do we have Ike on the line as well?
I just texted him, so I can just give an overview. So I think the board is aware and a lot of residents are aware that this over the spring and early summer, we've had a huge growth of organic material in the Gedney Park Pond, and it's resulted unfortunately in some fish dying, and it's kind of covered the pond, and I don't know if you can even see the water at this point. So this was a growth that kind of came up out of nowhere. We had, I think in 2023, identified it could be a problem. It went dormant. We thought maybe we wouldn't continue to have a problem, and then with the warm temperatures and some other factors that maybe Dennis will go into, we were kind of overrun with the growth. So we're looking to remediate this, and we've got, it's kind of probably about a 3-step process. Tonight, we're looking to approve a bathymetric mapping of the pond, which actually determines how much matter there is to remove from the pond. Once we know that, the next step then will be to hydro rake and dispose of the material in the pond, and then kind of the third step in that is an ongoing maintenance of the pond so that this doesn't happen on an ongoing basis. So that's an overview. I'm gonna let Dennis get into a little bit of the technical aspects and maybe kind of why we got to where we got to and how we're gonna remediate it going forward.
Thank you, Town Board, for this opportunity. Right, as Rob mentioned, we did last late summer, myself, Ike, Christine from the town, and a representative of this pond management company did visit the location. And in doing that recon, there was a number of options, and Ike had requested, that's what I have in front of me now, that each of those options be broken down as individual mini letter proposals. And as Rob said, first and foremost was to do this survey of the pond's bottom contours. It's called bathymetry, and that really would serve, in my opinion, a twofold purpose. One, Black Lagoon's proposal to do this hydro raking, which is a removal of the organic material, both the rooted vegetation as well as some of the decayed matter that is nearby. The analogy that I use is like, almost like if you're pulling weeds. When you pull a plant out of the ground, it's more than just the plant and the roots. There's always, something worked into the roots, right? Obviously, whether it be the substrate, maybe some of the decayed material. It's the same thing in the aquatic system. So to determine how much of that needs to come out, possibly be dewatered before it eventually gets, disposed, which all has a cost associated with it. So to make more known the unknown, the bathymetry was the first step, and there was anticipation that if we were able to sign on at that time, that they possibly could get the hydro raking done in the fall, knowing what the bathymetry was. So
this was last year.
yes, and also part of the evaluation was, since this was the first time that this had appeared to our knowledge, we weren't. I started in 2019, I didn't recall this being a condition in the past or having it brought to our attention. There was some discussion that, could this be a one-time event, or is this going to be a problem potentially next year? Is a wait-and-see approach unreasonable? And, we kind of collectively determined at that time that it was not. So
That it was not unreasonable.
not unreasonable, right? Sorry for the double negative.
Right.
So
Just to be clear.
Yep,
But also, we
correct.
this never rose to the board level. Like, this was
No,
within, just maintenance and, making reasonable decisions based on the information you had at the time.
right, and obviously, there was a cost associated with all of these items, as Rob explained, since this would have all been new and there wasn't money set aside for this, and we're still in that, and it may be a problem, may not be a problem. I think we took the wait and see approach. So this year, obviously, not only did this situation reappear, but there was enough growth that actually stimulated an anoxic condition, that's the term, which produced the fish kills. So there was enough growth, enough of a bloom that not the bloom period, but it is the degradation and decay of the plant matter after it goes through its life cycle is what consumes the available oxygen in the water to break that down and makes less available for the other organisms that need. That's part of the reason why you know, to my knowledge, there's no issues with the frogs or the turtles, they're gulpers. But, you know, the species with gills that actually diffuse the oxygen from the water, yes, they're competing for limited oxygen and hence the fish kill. So now we're taking that as a sign, well, okay, the wait and see approach didn't work, so moving forward, it's the two-step process for me. After the bathymetry proposal, the hydro rake is kind of that attempt to shock in a good way the system in terms of let's try to get rid of as much of this, you know, organic material that we can. It will require permitting from DEC, but it's not considered formal dredging in terms of you're not changing the contour, the bottom contours of the pond. Hopefully not the hydrodynamics. And then after that, you know, I'll call it a positive shock. Then it's that more management program going forward to try to stay ahead of or mitigate the growth, similar to what they do, as you mentioned, and I know that at Hidden Hollow Lake, and similar to what they do in the New Croton Reservoir for our drinking water supply.
Right, I guess seeing that the growth this year was a surprise to everyone who's watching it, we just have to assume that the conditions, the environmental conditions that we have to deal with now with the excessive heat, excessive humidity, combined with other environmental factors, you know, lawn care, et cetera, you know, understanding that there's not just one factor involved in this. We can't be in a situation where every few years or so we have this major event going on. So I think it's important to, after we do the, you know, the raking, et cetera, to put a lot of emphasis on annual maintenance. And, you know, of course, I mean, that goes with everything, but this is a new kind of condition that we're contending with. So we'll have to figure out what the reasonable annual maintenance looks like for something like this, so that it's not an overwhelming expense, an overwhelming procedure, but just something that's reasonably done every year.
Sure, and you know, I think the pond management company would probably be more than happy to accommodate that, and obviously they have experience with this because this is not a problem that's unique to Newcastle. You know, the pond, you know, a lot of these ponds, even the private ones that I've seen in Newcastle, they were all carved out of, dredged out of either former wetlands or in stream courses. And you know, nature kind of wants to revert back sometimes to, you know, most of the time actually to what it was. So there is no set it and forget it. Certainly when you create your pond, and to your point, no set it and forget it in terms of the proposal here. So it's not hydro raking and walk away. It's yes, you need to.
It's
have,
constant,
going
it's
forward.
maintenance. In a way, we're dealing with nature doing what it wants to do and people wanting it to be what they want it to be. But it's important to the community to have Gedney Pond. I mean, everyone loves the pond and we wanna see it continue as a pond, even though nature is saying no, we want this to come back and be a wetland. So in a way, we're kind of fighting what nature does. But I think it's important enough to the community to maintain the pond.
Sure, no,
Yeah.
you could have a balance for sure.
Dennis,
Yes.
just a quick question, you mentioned about the fish dying. Do we believe that that has stopped since the weather has changed, or are there still, or is it still risky for the fish? And if so, is there anything in the short term that could or should be done?
I mean, you have 4 aerators going in the pond. I believe I remembered an anecdotal comment last year from the person from Black Lagoon, if, you know, wasn't sure if that was enough aerators or not. But at the same time, I don't think you can cover the entire pond surface with aerators either. Like, I kinda, in my mind, almost like resisted that comment a little bit because I was like, well, you could put more aerators in, but there is a capacity where it's either A, not gonna serve a purpose anymore, or B, it's not gonna be a pond surface anymore. So, you know, it's July, so this is, you know, this is the season that you would expect this in, you know, into August. I know it's warm again, but again, to me, it's all tied with the, you know, with the blooms and the degradation in the temperatures. So I would say it's possible. I don't wanna commit one way or the other.
But it doesn't sound like there's really anything we can do until we do the positive shock.
Yeah, I mean, and I don't, I think you mentioned before, I'm not convinced that, yes, every fish in the pond has made its way to the surface, unfortunately, and it is floating. I mean, it's just, that's the population that we saw. The good thing about aquatic systems is they do rebound relatively quickly. I mean, if we're here discussing China had return a terrestrial system that was a 100-year-old forest after it was cut down, that's not happening in our lifetime. But something like this, at least I have more confidence that once this program is instituted, it's going to be back more to the pond that people have been accustomed to seeing.
Okay, well, obviously we want this to happen ASAP, but that we will have to be patient with the process, with the DEP permit and with what Black Lagoon is able to do for us afterwards in their schedule. But can we expect the problem to dissipate a bit when the weather cools down?
Yeah.
Which does not mean that it's gone away, but will it at least
In terms
look
of
better
that,
and be more oxygenated as the weather cools, as we're waiting for all this to happen?
right, now you're in the height of the growing season, so it's all sort of photosynthetic generated, right? So it's the same as with the terrestrial plants. I mean, as you sort of get out of the summer and into the fall, it's just less growth, less bloom, less, the organisms are not, in the height of their season. So over winter, or even into late fall and over winter, it should not be the same visual aesthetic. So, and during that time, yes, we could still be advancing with respect to what we need to do, with the, in this case, these proposals from Black Lagoon to advance what we need to advance going forward.
Okay.
Thank you, Dennis.
Ike did join us, I don't know if
Anyone else has questions?
No.
Okay.
Thank you, Ike.
Thank you, Ike.
Oh yeah, thank you, Ike. Did you wanna say anything, Ike, since you're here? Do you want to add
No,
anything?
there's nothing I'm gonna be able to add, especially since I'm double what Dennis said, so.
Very good.
Nothing about photosynthesis?
Yeah, no.
Alright,
Thanks, Ike.
thank you, Ike.
Yeah, thanks, Dennis.
Okay. Were you saying something? No, okay. Alright, thank you so much, Dennis and Ike. Let's just get this done ASAP, as soon as we can. Okay, so now let's move on to a suggestion coming from Dennis to consider removing the word water under the definition of our wetland code. And you can describe that in more detail.
Right, I don't have the memo in front of me, but so it was just something that I guess collectively, not just myself, but when I was speaking with when I noticed it, I mentioned it to Cioli, the town engineer, I mentioned it to Sabrina, and I said, first of all, I don't see water as a quote-unquote material. When you look at it, that's what it's included under the definition of material under wetlands, and it's alluding to like substances, discharges, sludges, muds, whatever, that maybe would have sort of like a definable point of origin or a source. But when water wasn't then further defined, at that point, it just got confusing to all of us because we're like, well then, it's not stormwater. And I'm like, no, it's precipitation. I said, so in essence, if someone, wanted to complain because there was water coming from another property, not a definable source, but just based on the landform, sheet flow coming from one property to another, or someone, downstream of a water course, and the waters are rising because the waters that are coming off of the upstream properties, that's not something that I don't think the code would intend to regulate, nor I would have no idea how to enforce that, like who takes custody of each molecule as it sort of makes its way.
Yeah.
What about taking custody of, what about, this sort of makes me think of the legislation that we were just discussing and dealt with, what about a month or two ago about the half-acre lots where when you alter the landscape and you could potentially damage your neighbor's property and
Right.
people get their basements flooded. So my response or question is, well, you can deal with it, you're not dealing with the water itself, but you're dealing with what causes potentially the water to do whatever it does and flow wherever it flows. So
Right, but I think if I understood that correctly, that had to do with storm water and over impervious and or disturbed areas sort of as it relates to chapter 108A. The way it appears the way the word appears as it reads under the definition of material in the code, it's not qualified. So
is the answer qualifying it or is the answer just removing it?
I think if you look at the additional qualifiers under material, and then the fact that you have stormwater, a code dedicated to that. I think you also have a code dedicated to illicit discharges. I think all of that covers everything, and water, just leaving it there, to me, there's still this ambiguity. And maybe I'm speaking from recent experience where someone is, trying to bring us into a situation where there's on their property, they notice, there's water that comes out of here and it's only when it rains and I have a wetland and is that what you would regulate? And like we don't regulate precipitation.
Yeah, and
So this is basically, we're just regulating the discharge or depositing of certain materials onto wetlands.
You're taking out
That's
just
basically
just to make it a
Yeah.
little easier, just your this chapter 137 regulates wetlands and depositing materials. So really all that's happening, and I understand what Dennis is saying, but from like a legal standpoint, materials, you're really just taking out water out of the definition because materials right now are defined, it already
Right.
talks about soil, silt, stones. Those are actually, rock, clay, bog, peat, mud, debris. Those are things that you really can't put in the wetlands. So,
Right.
Water is really not water because water by its own definition is in a wetland.
Yeah, that's
So
what I was getting at,
really
yeah.
all you're getting at is just you're clarifying it by taking out water because water is there regardless, so it's but that's not what was meant to regulate. You really was meant to regulate depositing of soil, dirt, debris, and that's what's already in the code in 137 as materials that are prohibited in terms of regulated filling of a wetland, so you can't do that. So water for some reason wound up in the definition, so
What you cannot put in a
right,
in a
it shouldn't be
wetland,
there.
so it shouldn't
doesn't-
be there,
right,
it shouldn't
and
be
And
there.
there's some other remedy,
Yeah.
someone dumped another liquid.
Maybe water was mixed in with something else,
Right, like
which
sewage.
the way the sentence structure reads,
Yeah.
there's no comma, so it must have meant water combined with something, but it was badly drafted. And so
Yeah.
it ended up looking like water, so I agree, we should take the word water
No
out,
water in
but
our wetlands.
Right.
but
Just saying that in of itself
no,
is
these
just-
are, these are all of the materials that you cannot put on wetlands. So
Not that it can't
we don't
exist
wanna
on
say,
wetlands,
we don't
can't
wanna
put
say
it-
that you can't put water.
Understood.
So
You
we
can't-
would wanna remove the word water and the word and. Right?
No,
No,
and is
and
okay,
stays.
and stays, it's just, you're just removing the word water from chapter 137-2.
No, because the and goes within the same clause. It's soil, silt, stone, sand, gravel, rock, clay, bog, peat, mud, debris, water and refuse or any other organic or inorganic substance, and then it continues. Chemical agent or matter, sewage, sludge, the list continues. So
It's an unnecessary end.
the water and was meant to, this is where I was saying that water was probably
Combined with.
part to be, meant to be combined with
Right, right,
something else. And it was badly drafted. You see, they meant to say probably
Or
water
combined with-
mixed with
Yeah.
refuse or any other organic or inorganic
Yeah.
substance. But the way it's drafted is unclear, but I do think that refuse or any other organic or
Yeah, well,
inorganic substance is also unclear. It should probably be redrafted, but for today's purposes, we don't want to leave the word "and" there, it doesn't make any sense.
And all you're doing tonight, really, if the board so chooses to schedule a public hearing on this for your next meeting. So that way we can draft this, revise it, and then put it on for a public hearing to consider the amendment to that code. I guess it would be the August 13th.
I guess my only remaining question is whether we should clarify what any other organic or inorganic substance means in this context.
Why would you, well, Dennis is better to answer.
Don't we wanna be more specific?
That's up to you. If you're allowed maybe sort of at least we used to discuss this with respect to some of the Clean Water Act and Corps of Engineers regulations. Sometimes they leave like an interpretive latitude. This way they could sort of, I don't wanna say on a case by case basis. So if the organic substance is, leaves blowing in, obviously we're not gonna consider that. But if it's, somebody's looking to dump a bag of fertilizers into the wetlands, it's like, well, that could be, I guess, considered organic or inorganic, but that would be something where you would exert.
The catch-all gives us a.
Okay, so it
force.
leaves a certain amount of discretion,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah, definitely leave it, just because it gives Dennis and his department the ability to make that call.
Okay,
And it would make it so difficult to identify all the different things.
okay.
Right.
So I would delete the words water and the word "and" following water.
So with that, I would just then, would entertain a motion to schedule that with those edits, and I'll prepare the draft local law for the public hearing for the August 13th meeting.
Okay then. Okay, August 13th.
Under the consent agenda.
Perfect.
Thank you.
Great, thanks for
Thank you.
catching that.
Thank you, Dennis.
Thanks, Dylan.
Okay, Rob, do you wanna go through the administrative items?
Sure.
Kind of a long list, but
It is a long list, limited meetings over the summer, so it means we've gotta knock off a lot of business here. First is just two payment of claims, one dated June 28th, that's the retroactive, and then one that'll be dated July 10th, that's tomorrow. For the next group, I've got Sabrina online, and she's gonna talk to, we've got the town board received earlier today the information for the determination for the Seeker Act for the bird sanctuary, that's part of the chap line. And then we have I think 5 different letters of support for different consolidated funding grants that Sabrina is working on currently. So she's online here and I'll let her talk to these.
great, hi Sabrina.
Hi everyone, I hope everyone's doing well tonight. So we'll start with the bird sanctuary. So we have a consultant team, Martin and LaJudas, who is preparing a grant application under the parks line in the consolidated funding application. I think the maximum award is $675,000. They are peeling off the bird sanctuary improvements from the Chapline project to submit under the CFA. In order to do that, there's 2 things that are needed from the town board. One is the authorization for the town board, town supervisor to sign a letter of support. And the second thing that is needed is the seeker process has to be instigated. I sent you late today and I apologize at the timeliness of it, a notice of intent to be lead agency. It is an unlisted action. We are going to undertake a coordinated review. We have included a Part 1 full environmental assessment form, which needs to be signed by the town supervisor, and it also needs to be circulated with a map that will be sent to the interested and involved agencies. And so that is a letter, there's a draft resolution that was written for you guys to note that The project known as the Bird Sanctuary is considered an unlisted action in accordance with the State Environmental Quality Review Act, and you do want to assume your role as lead agency under that process. So that's with the Bird Sanctuary. The next I guess matter is a letter of support for the town to submit a consolidated funding application under the Water Quality Improvement Program for a new vac truck. This will be the third time that we are submitting a grant application for a new vac truck. We're hoping third time's charm. It will be the last time we submit. If we don't get it this time. It is a piece of equipment that we desperately need, but there is funding available, so we're gonna try and obtain it. The third letter of support is for compliance with our stormwater MS4 permit. I am submitting a grant up to $75,000 for development of an integrated mapping tool to help us manage and report on the stormwater program. And that also needs a letter of support. Let me make sure I got them all. And then I also have a letter of support if I identify a funding stream under the consolidated funding application to submit another application for the entire Chapline Trailway, whether it be for a phase or for a combination of phases of that project. So those are the letters of support that are needed.
Sabrina, regarding
yeah.
items 3 and 4 on the consent agenda, regarding the MS4 legislation, remind me, are we under time constraints for when we would need to have the mapping system up and running, and are we under some sort of time constraint about getting this vacuum truck? Is it expected that we have these things by a certain time?
So no, we have different benchmarks, 3 years right now it's not like we're not implementing things, right? The mapping tool is so we can be more efficient at documenting the work that we're doing. We have 5 years to develop a mapping tool, but it's going to take us a while to get it online and being able to use it. I'm looking at a 3-phased approach to this mapping tool. And when for example, we need to consolidate our existing mapping. We've been using online mapping and in-house mapping for many, many years. We have a lot of resources. We've been using those resources to help guide us, but not to the extent that the new permit requires us to use. So we're looking at the first phase is really doing an assessment of what we do have. We are completely in compliance with where we are supposed to be as of July 3rd with all of the elements that the MS4 permit requires. Where we are going to fall short is our ability to do assessment as to targeting different activities in and outside of the East of Hudson watershed, digging deeper at doing the right analyses regarding our systems, our monitoring, filling out the forms that the state is requiring. So my intention eventually, and hopefully within the next year or two, depending on how much money it's going to take and how quickly we can get it together, is to have our assessment forms on a handheld device so that when the stormwater folks are out in the field, they're entering the data live into our system. So there's not a lot of repeat work that happens in the office. Right now, everything gets entered in a notebook. It's not digital, it's not entered appropriately in accordance with the new permit. We're doing the work, we're just not doing it the way that this new permit is asking us to do it. So that's an example of the mapping. When it comes to the vac truck, we have he's cleaning, the DPW is cleaning catch basins right now. It's not very efficient. he tried, we have a requirement by February to have inspected all of the catch basins in the east of Hudson watershed in the community. Once we inspect them, we have to follow through and either clean them, fix them, etc. Right now, between now and February, we can make do. Will we hit all of them? We will probably inspect them all, but will we be able to clean them? Probably not, because it just takes too much time given the equipment.
Sorry to interrupt you, but what's the consequence to the town if we don't do that by February?
Will be not in compliance.
And then what?
They can
Is there fine, they could fine us, and what would the?
But honestly, I think there will be some leniency. We perform very well whenever we are audited, and we are making moves to do this. It's going to come down to if we're not going to achieve, we will achieve inspection of the catch basins by the date that we need to. Okay, that's not the problem. The problem is gonna be cleaning them all out. I don't know, I can't think of off the top of my head what that date for making sure they're cleaned is. But we'll get as far as we can with the resources that we have. This budget cycle, the stormwater team met this morning. We will be preparing an MS4 budget for the town board to get us through the different benchmarks in the stormwater permit and what we envision is needed in order to get the work done. And you will see that as part of the 2025 budget proposal.
Will we have that by August 13th?
See it.
I'm sorry?
Will we have the stormwater budget, the MS4 budget by the 13th, do you think?
No.
I don't think so, but that's not, I mean, the tentative budget won't come out till the end of September, so we have,
time.
yeah, if we get that in early September, that should be fine.
Okay.
Yeah, no, the different department heads who are involved in this, we all met today and they're currently digesting their responsibilities
Thank you.
and coming up with a plan to achieve the requirements.
I mean, and
It's an
look,
incredible Bruce.
we're not
It is.
alone, we're not alone in this.
No, it's
I mean, there's so many municipalities that have to deal with this. We're in reasonably decent financial shape. I don't know what everyone as a collective group is going to do, but I have a feeling that something will have to give at some point.
I think we perform comparatively well with other communities. You know, Sabrina made the point that when we're audited, we always have a good showing. I would imagine that our showing versus other communities, we're very proactive and I think we're getting to what we can get to in the
That's what's first, we're being almost penalized.
Yeah.
It's for other communities' inabilities.
Yeah, no, it is true, and in regards to the vac truck, if we don't get funding for the vac truck, it will need to be acted on as part of our budget.
What's shocking about this, not to get too deep down this rabbit hole, is there's municipalities that are certainly in worse financial state than us, and how are they gonna come up with the dollars to get the human power and the machine power, if you will, to do these jobs and administratively, so.
And they just keep adding to
Yeah.
what is expected.
It'll be a puzzle to fit it into our budget too, to be honest with you.
That's my point.
Yeah, this is not easy.
No.
This is not easy, and right now, we documented what we can accomplish based on the resources and our abilities. We're gonna continue to do that, cause I'm not sure if the town, if you guys are gonna approve a budget for what we think we really need to get this done, and we'll do what we can. And it is what it is. It's not for lack of trying. This is our third attempt at trying to get some assistance with paying for a vac truck. And it's not just a vac truck, it's a multi-purpose vacuum piece of machinery so that when the crew are out in the field, they have enough capacity in the truck to handle the sediment that they're removing from several catch basins and not running back and forth to the dump site, which is across town, and they have all of the tools on the truck so that they can pop the tops of the catch basins, they can, they have the pipes and all the different tools that are needed to clean them out. A lot of times it's not like it's new construction where you can stick a hose in a catch basin and suck all the sand out. It takes a lot more work, particularly on the older catch basins.
I know how hard our town staff is working on this, Sabrina. Thank you so much. I appreciate you guys having a meeting, preparing a budget for us. It's just concerning because this MS4 legislation is going to subject the town to serious financial implications. And we were all very disturbed by the governmental overreach, and we are trying to get our mind around what is going to be expected of us and what our obligations are going to be and how we're going to pay for it.
And our legislators were staunchly against this.
Right, so I do think we'll have to do some amount of advocacy. I think that is out there, and we have to be realistic together and to make people understand what our true capacity is, manpower wise, person power wise and financially. And I have to wonder where, this is primarily benefiting New York City drinking water. And it's helping us as well, but it's a state responsibility and it's the city's responsibility as well.
Correct.
And I'd like to know where they are in this. It's putting the responsibility, a huge financial burden on municipalities like ours to ensure that New York City has clean drinking water, which is an important goal. They absolutely should. But to do this, it just seems that people were sitting around in a room up at the DEC, thinking of various provisions to put in and what ought to be done, and without any regard to the realities, there was no, as far as I'm concerned, there was no real collaboration, as usual, which is what happens when you have unfunded mandates and draconian top-down legislation. There is no partnership, there is no collaboration at all. I know, Sabrina, there were opportunities for comments and there were many drafts before we reached this point, but that I don't think was meaningful collaboration. There was not a meaningful partnership, and that is always the problem.
Yeah, I think once we got to the point of the draft, they weren't going to change it very much from that point.
No, it's almost as if
And the communities weren't brought to the table prior to drafting the new permit. There was a lot of pushback when the first permit came out, and they wanted actual chemical monitoring at monitoring locations. And the permit was amended, and the state went through several different renditions of amending their initial permit, but the municipalities were not consulted. We were speaking today, just to give an example, that a lot of the catch basins or the outfalls, because we're required to inspect and maintain outfalls, which we haven't been required to fix in the past, we're now required to repair them. Many of them are severely degraded. They need, a lot of attention, and they're in wetland areas. So we were discussing today about, blanket wetland approval, because, we do have the ability to repair under the wetland code, but, we have a lot of work to be done, and we're not sure. It's a case-by-case basis as to how an outfall will be repaired and what type of machinery you need to get in there, what type of repair you need to undertake. These are all little projects that are going to come out of an inspection, which we currently don't address today.
It's like they need a blank check from us, basically.
Right, thank you, Sabrina.
Thank you,
yes, thank you very much.
So please authorize my letters of support.
Yes, we'll authorize.
The deadline is July 31st for all of this. And again, my apologies for the late submission of the secret documentation for the bird sanctuary.
Thank you, Sabrina, you've been working very hard, we appreciate it.
Thank you.
Sure. And one last thing is later on, under the administrative items is the INF proposal for King Street. It's back before you. We were able to secure NYSERDA funding through the Climate Smart or Clean Energy Communities designation. Our SAB and our Climate Smart Committee have been working really hard, and we were able to apply for that, and the state approved use of the money for the EV chargers in the Allen Place parking lot, so.
Great, thank you.
Okay,
So
yeah,
great, thank
thank
you.
Alrighty, everyone have a good night.
Okay, have a
Thank
good night,
you.
Sabrina, thank you.
Bye.
Alright, Rob, you wanna take it away? I think we were up to the
Sure.
noise waiver.
Yep, we'll continue with the noise waiver at 415 Sarl Street. We also have the authorization to approve the 2024 paving contract with Montesano. We have an authorization to release the cash maintenance bond agreement for the stormwater improvements, 402 Sarls. We're looking for authorization to obtain bids for the proposed Millwood Park ADA walkway improvement project that Miguel and Bob have been working on that for months. And we got grant funding to put that walkway in there, the ADA walkway there, and improve the playground there. We have an authorization to award the bid for the Chapac parking lot and drainage improvement project. We're finally moving with that, and that's gonna move forward now. We have an authorization, as Sabrina just mentioned, to accept the proposal from INF. That allows us to replace in kind, Sabrina didn't mention, there were two chargers at Allen Place, and if you remember, when we just approved a proposal a couple weeks ago for chargers, they would only fund if we were gonna add more chargers to that lot, and the size of the lot, we didn't wanna take any more parking spaces away to dedicate them solely to electric. So this grant allows us to replace what's already there in kind, so that's helpful to us. We are going to authorize the looking for authorization to award the bid for the tree removal contract. We just authorization to purchase polyfiberglass paving risers from Glencoe Supply. And we're looking to establish the capital project and budget for the Chappaqua train station security system. The funds for that project also came from they came from DASNY, I think that was a SAM grant as well.
Rob, the authorization for tree removal, is this the general tree removal for dead trees and
Yeah.
just the general
Yes, it is.
maintenance that we do
Yep.
with dangerous dead trees that are
Right, so
going to
what
fall? Okay.
what typically happens there is Dennis will go out and identify trees that need to be removed, diseased trees, et cetera, that need to be removed, and he'll mark them and report them to the vendor, and they'll come out and remove the trees. That's also for any removal during storms, if we have big limbs that come down and those types of things. So yep, that's it. This is gonna be a new contractor this year. They were a low bid, they underbid Olmsted, so the reason we waited until the last minute here is Bart did his diligence and called the references, and they got glowing references from where he called, so they ended up as low bidders, so
Awesome, okay, great.
change vendors.
Thank you, Rob. Okay, so that ends our work session. At this time, I'd like to ask for motion to adjourn the work session and open the town board meeting.
So moved.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. So we are now in our town board meeting. For those of you joining us, welcome to our Tuesday, July 9th, 2024 town board meeting. We will start with announcements. Let's see, Christina, do you wanna do the parking announcement? We've had a few changes to parking and we are going to be putting out more information at
Sure.
this point.
So it is time to reapply for your train station parking permits. We do have a new provider for metered parking as well as for applying for your permits. It's being handled by Pango. You can go to mypango.com to apply for the standard resident permit and also the meter permit. You no longer have to display a meter permit card if you're purchasing a meter permit. And if you do try to park in lot A without a permit, you will not be able to purchase time. So some people think something's wrong with the app, but they don't have a valid permit. So we're asking if everyone could come in and apply or go online and apply for a new permit. We'll get you processed as soon as possible. And that That's it, so please come on in or go to our website at mynewcastle.org and there's a whole page on parking with links to Pango.
Okay, thank you, Christine, and also because this is a change, although permits usually expire on June 15th, we're allowing
Yes.
the expiration period to extend to July 12th, so no one will be penalized because of
Yes.
all of these changes. But the year will revert back to ending on June 15th next year.
Yes,
Right, okay.
so the new parking years technically started on June 15th. We did a bit of a soft opening because we were transitioning to this new program. And we wanted to be sure that it would work without any problems for our residents, without we didn't want to announce it and open it and then find out that there was too many difficulties. This program was written just for the town of Newcastle. It is functioning well, and it's moving along. We've had several hundred permits already processed and approved. So the town board was gracious enough to extend a grace period for renewals that goes through this Friday, July 12th. So we ask that you come in, get your parking permits, and this current parking year will expire June 14th, 2025.
Okay, thank you. And I will defer my supervisor's report to my newsletter. That will come out later this week. And Rob, do you have an administrator's report
Don't really have a report, the only thing, one comment I would like to make is just to remind residents of our summer hours. We close town hall at 3:15, I've been here later than 3:15, and when I walk out sometimes I see people that were unaware of that, so the website does reflect that. And I just wanted to remind residents, we have signs on the door, but not everybody comes to town hall every day and sees that, so just a reminder of our summer hours, that's through Labor Day.
Okay, oh, and I also wanna remind everyone that our next town board meeting is on August 13th. The website needs to be corrected, it still reflects a meeting on the 26th. So that meeting,
Thank you, I'll have that
it will not take place, our next meeting will be August 13th. Okay, that's it, so now we will move on to public comments. So please, anyone with a public comment, please come up to the microphone and identify yourself and where you live.
I absolutely will. Hello, my name is John Ehrlich, I'm at Mapletree Close in Chappaqua.
Hello, John.
Hello all. The reason I've come up today is to provide solutions for some of the wonderful things that we heard today. I think that it is useful and helpful to find to provide forms for not-for-profit funding for desired projects. Now, the Arts and Culture Committee has got a lot of these. What did I do, for personally, when we give away money, we set up a foundation for that. We, put some money, so the money aside allowed us to do it. But what that allows us to do is to separate town funding. These are helpful funds, so folks can set up these not-for-profits, write a check. If it's appropriate, like an arts and culture item, it might be appropriate to put it into a function where if somebody writes a check to put up these wonderful pieces of artwork, it then becomes an NFP. It's easier, deductible, and it also moves some of the pressures away from the town and into the artistic funding apparatuses that exist throughout the world. I mean, it was interesting to see that in your Arts and Culture Committee, one of the key providers for that is the fellow that does the marketing for Caramore, which is one of our wonderful area things to do. Other project, it's not part of this budget in this thing, but the library has free concerts on a regular basis every several weeks that they're able to provide. So what I wanted to suggest today as part of the process is to establish these not-for-profit funding apparatus. Chatpack, for example, is an obvious because it's a building, it's wonderful. But let's get it going because people will reach into their pockets and write checks, sometimes when asked, to execute these things. And I think that this would be a wonderful, example earlier today, and the reason I'm bringing it up is because I put it up, is the removable panels, the artistic panels that you've suggested for the mural projects and things like that. That would be an excellent opportunity to provide not-for-profit funding to do it in a way so you can get these panels. Now these panels not only can be constructed for us, but these panels can be exchanged to other communities to use on their downtowns, as long as you have something on. One of the things that I was involved in early on, I was printing up all those theater posters for Broadway shows in New York and to set up an apparatus to do it. Well, all you had to do was standardize the frames that you put these posters in. And then this allows us to do it, and that could be your panels to add some of those things. So I don't want to get into it too deeply here, but I just wanted to put that out there, suggest it, done this in the past, and it's been a good apparatus. So with that, I thank you so much for being here, and you've worked hard, so I will depart. Have a nice day.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Anyone online? Okay, no one's online, so that will close off our public comment period. And now I guess we'll move on to our resolutions.
All right, Lightning
See.
McQueen.
What's that?
Is it all right, Lightning McQueen, to start her off?
Hang on,
your
Christina,
marks.
do you have the extra, let me find mine,
So this
where
is
are my
for the,
resolutions?
Oh, the,
Yeah,
Is that a separate resolution?
this is the one for the arts. Incorporated.
Thank you.
Sorry. And then we, of course, we have the one, it should be in the front of your packet, this one right here. Those are the
Oh.
two.
the lead agency,
Yes.
is that,
Please.
is that the only, one? It's in a packet with the other,
I've got that one.
okay.
So it's the consent agenda and then there
Right,
are the
okay.
additional, that
So
were-
it's this one, the arts and culture, and then our
Plus
A
10.
regular
Got
one.
it, okay,
Right.
alright, thank
Okay.
you.
got it. Thank you, yeah, we got it.
Happens when we don't have-
Okay,
Alright,
do you wanna start off, Holly? Do you
Yeah.
want to?
I move to adopt the items 1 through 16 as listed in the consent agenda.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
I move to retroactively approve the payment of claims in the amount of $579,978.42 listed on the summary AP check register and detail reports dated June 28th, 2024. Checks were printed and distributed to each claimant listed on Friday, June 28th, 2024.
Second. All in favor?
Aye. I move to approve the payment of claims in the amount of $258,350.63 listed on the summary pre-check writing report and detail report dated July 8th, 2024. Checks will be printed and distributed to each claimant listed on Wednesday, July 10th, 2024.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
One more, yeah.
I move to authorize promotion of Edison Gramajo from the position of police officer to police sergeant within the Newcastle Police Department with an annual salary of $142,872, effective July 10th, 2024.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Congratulations.
Holly?
I move to authorize the hiring of James Wilson for the position of laborer within the Department of Public Works Highway Unit at the annual salary of $51,246.97 effective July 15th, 2024.
Second.
All in favor? Aye.
I move to authorize the hiring of Freddie Hurtado for the position of motor equipment operator within the Department of Public Works Highway Unit at the annual salary of $61,220.76 effective July 30th, 2024.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye. I move to authorize the hiring of Ann Rosen for the position of recreation attendant within the Recreation and Parks Department to serve as a camp counselor at the rate of $15 per hour effective retroactively to June 28th, 2024.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
You-
I move to authorize a pay increase for Alyssa Kuhn who serves as the Youth Coalition Coordinator for Newcastle United for Youth at an hourly rate of $45 per hour, effective retroactively to June 1st, 2024.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
I move to authorize the award of a bid for the Chapel Performing Arts Center parking lot and drainage improvement to VS Construction Corp. for the total bid amount of $522,000.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Move to authorize the award of the bid for DPW 2024-05 tree removal, pruning, vertical mulching, and stump grinding, Alpine Tree Services. The total average cost $2,609.64.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Jen, do you wanna take the resolution and then the arts?
Okay, resolution first.
Yes.
Resolution declaring the intent of the Town of Newcastle Town Board to act as lead agency. Whereas the Town of Newcastle is proposing the Town of Newcastle Bird Sanctuary Site Development Project located in the Town of Newcastle, Westchester County, New York, and whereas the project has been classified as an unlisted action as defined by the State Environmental Quality Review Act in 6 NYCRR Part 617.4, and whereas it is the intent of the Town of Newcastle Town Board to assume the role of lead agency for purposes of conducting a SEQRA assessment of the project, and whereas Part 1 of a full environmental assessment form has been completed, reviewed by the Town of Newcastle Town Board, and will be circulated to all interested and involved agencies for purposes of establishing the Town of Newcastle Town Board as lead agency in accordance with 6 NYCRR Part 617.6B. Now therefore be it resolved and determined that the supervisor of the Town of Newcastle hereby is authorized to sign Part 1 of the FEAF, and it is further resolved and determined that the Town of Newcastle will send said Part 1 of the FEAF and associated site figure to the attached list of interested and involved agencies under cover of a notice of intent to establish lead agency letter for purposes of establishing lead agency status under the SEQRA SERP. And it is further resolved that the town supervisor of the Town of Newcastle and the town board, together with the Town of Newcastle attorney, are hereby authorized to take all actions, serve all notices, and complete all documents required to give full force and effect to this determination. The question. Do I read that last line?
Does she need
hang
to-
on, we need a roll call. Yeah, go ahead, Jen, just finish that up.
The question of the adoption of the foregoing resolution was duly put to a vote, and upon roll call, the vote was as follows.
So who's going to take the roll?
Second?
Who made the motion?
Sorry, Jen made
Jen
the
made.
motion.
Seconded by
Holly.
Holly, then go down.
Okay, so we have to go down the line.
Yep.
We have to vote
Holly?
separately, that's a roll call.
Aye.
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 Okay.
Thank you.
I move to authorize the funding of an amount not to exceed $3,000 to the Arts and Culture Committee to fund an art mural to be displayed at Petticoat Lane, to include payment to the artist and the associated supplies, to be paid out of the town budget boards and commissions line.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, that concludes everything. May I have a motion to adjourn the meeting?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.